What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. In this episode, we're gonna be taking a look at the new Harbor Freight APEX winch. We're gonna install it on the LJ. We're gonna take a look at it and see how good this winch actually is. So we have the box right here. Let's bring it over to the back of the truck and see what's in it. So this is the new Harbor Freight Badlands APEX winch. Most of you guys know that Harbor Freight has been making winches for a while. Their old Badlands series, while they were very affordable, they definitely weren't the best winches for off-roading and, you know, a really reliable winch. But it definitely seems like Harbor Freight stepped up their game, making a winch with some really good specs, plus it looks pretty cool. So in this video, we're gonna take a look at this winch, see how it performs, install it on the LJ, and kind of test it out here in the yard as best we can with the everything going on, not a lot of travel or do anything. So we're gonna have to get creative here in the driveway. In the past, we did have the Smittybilt winch, but I was very curious about this winch. So I figured this would be a good winch for this Jeep.
And I thought this would be a good project for Ben to do a video on too. I mean, I know the LJ is mine, but I had to leave him some fun stuff to do, right?
Cassie's been stealing all the good videos on her channel. So let's go ahead and take a look at this winch. Start off with everything on the box, the easy stuff. This winch is $750 normally. Harbor Freight does run specials on these all the time. From what I've seen, it's been out for quite a while now, and so far it's gotten some good reviews. But this is the APEX winch for the third time. It's 12,000 pounds of capacity. That is a big winch, especially on a small little LJ. So we'll talk more about winch ratings later in the video. You know, how do you choose, 9,000, 10,000, or 12,000 pound winch? We'll get to that. This is rated both IP68 and IP69K, so it's definitely a very good waterproof winch. We do have synthetic line, a wireless remote, and the line speed actually looks like they sped this thing up pretty good. So let's unbox it. So right off the bat, this winch already comes with a lot of things that other winches do not come with. We're gonna start over here with the remote. Not only do we get a wireless remote, but we also get the option to wire it. I'm gonna go ahead and say, while I do love a wireless remote, they're very handy. You can sit inside the Jeep, you can winch, you can be outside of the Jeep, and you don't have to worry about this wire, flopping around everywhere, possibly getting stuck in your door. I do like having the option to have a wired winch because you never know when your Bluetooth or your batteries in this thing are gonna crap out. So it's nice to have the option of both. We do get a very, very big winch hook. So this is a lot larger and it definitely looks a lot stronger than your traditional winch hook. We also get a nice aluminum fairlead bracket. But what this winch comes with that most standard winch models don't is the option to relocate our top control pack. So if you don't like the look of this, or you're running a really thin bumper and you might have to move this somewhere else, this winch already comes with everything you need to relocate it. So we have our little relocation mounting bracket, some little covers for our electrical covers, extra wires depending on where you want to relocate it. Suppose you want to relocate it somewhere else. We have a very long ground wire, a medium-sized ground wire, and a short one. We have all of our mounting accessories. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is the fact that we have a battery disconnect switch. So most winches on the market, you wire it directly to the battery, and that's the way I like it. But there are people out there that want to have some type of disconnect so their winch doesn't always have power available to it. If for some reason you do want to have the option to disconnect your power to your winch, you could add this inline, your positive feed to the battery. There's a lot of cool stuff here. Let's go ahead and get it installed on the Jeep so we can actually test it out, see what it looks like on the Jeep, and start talking about some of the features of this winch and winches in general. So before we go ahead and install a winch onto our Jeep or any other off-road vehicle, we have to have a bumper or some type of place to mount a winch. So right here, we already have a bumper that is designed for a winch. Now this bumper, we are gonna have to remove to get access to the nuts underneath here so we can mount our winch. So grab a helper, grab some tools, let's get this winch on. All right, well, it looks like my fairlead bracket is kind of interfering a little bit with these, so I'm gonna get my grinder, chop these off. I'm gonna go ahead and attach our ground wire. So we're gonna detach this nut here on the back. Uh-oh. Where'd it go? Is it gone forever?
Ben does this with a lot of things.
Do you see where it went?
I have no idea. It just kind of fell in.
Oh, it fell into the winch?
Yes, it fell in that way.
Oh no.
The pressure from the camera.
We're gonna hook up this little wire and then one of our ground cables. And finally, before it gets dark out, we're gonna reinstall the bumper onto the Jeep and then run these cables to our positive and negative side of the battery. All right, so we got the winch installed last night. I played around with it, I tested it out, and this thing is actually, it seems to be like it's gonna be a really good winch. Now, the plan for today was to get out in the yard, do a bunch of different tests, line speed, see if it actually works, all that good stuff. But it's pretty nasty out, really wet. So I think the first test we're gonna do is to make sure that this thing works when it's really wet. You know, waterproofing on a winch is very, very important. A lot of the times when you're stuck, you're either gonna be in mud or it's gonna be just like this out, raining, really slick, nasty conditions. And that's when you really need to rely on your winch and you need it to work 100%. So it's definitely really wet right now. We're gonna go down to the yard, mess around with it, get the controller wet, and then make sure the winch actually works in the rain. We're gonna pretend we got stuck and we're gonna winch up to that tree. We have the big giant ditch of doom right here. So let's put it in park, grab our controller, and go over to the front side of the winch. We can go over here and we have access to our plugs. We can either turn the wireless on or off or plug in our cord. We're gonna turn it to free spool. It definitely seems like this knob going from engaging to free spool is very, very smooth. See how hard it is to pull this out. So far, it does not take much resistance at all. This winch, we get 80 feet of synthetic line, which is definitely more than enough. It's 3/8, it's gonna be plenty strong on the trail. I'm starting to think today wasn't the best day to test this out. We have everything hooked up. One really neat feature, you know, when you have a wireless remote, you can either stuff it in your pocket, lay it here, and hopefully it doesn't fall off in the mud. But the one cool thing is that this wireless remote does have a magnet, so we can set it right there on any steel surface. We're gonna go ahead and flip our knob and then press and hold to switch between wireless or wired. And we're gonna winch in. All right, we have all the slack out of the line. It's time to hop in the Jeep and winch up the hill. We're gonna start the Jeep up. I'm gonna put it in neutral, and we're not gonna try to drive up this at all. I really want the winch to do all the work. We're in neutral. I'm gonna give us a little resistance while we're going into the ditch. And just let it ride. Seems like a very smooth and even pull. No weird noises. The winch is pretty quiet, doesn't sound like it's struggling too much. And then right here is when it's gonna start getting a little bit harder. Oh, sounds like we got a tire rubbing. But it is pulling strong through this. Alrighty, first test is very successful. So it definitely seemed like this winch had no issue at all winching the LJ up the hill, but we're about to get to the second test. What happens when we are hanging out in a mud pit, we are stuck, and oh no, the remote splashes, it falls in the water. Oh crap, is it still gonna work? Well, I actually sure hope so. Boom. I really do like how the hook stays right up there against the fairlead. Very similar to how like a Factor 55 flat link, all those things suck up against the fairlead. That is pretty neat. Yesterday was a great day to test out this winch in the rain. We were able to operate the winch when it was wet as well as get the controller wet, and it did perfect. So we also did another series of tests shortly after that. I was a little bit cold, didn't really want to talk to the camera. You can kind of imagine being soaking wet out in the rain. Wasn't much fun, but I kind of did a mini torture test. Now the goal was not to completely destroy this brand new winch that we just put on the LJ, but it was kind of, you know, to do a test scenario here in the yard. I know that we're not doing anything crazy, you know, we're not wheeling, we're not winching up rocks or really deep mud, but can't right now. That's just how it is. But what I did was did a series of winching back to back, winched up and down the driveway 4 times. So that was about 15 minutes of, you know, continuous use of the winch. I was checking for a few things. see if it made any weird noises, and then I'll also come over here and feel the winch to see if it starts overheating or getting hot, and surprisingly it did perfect. There were no issues. It still pulled really fast. Length about 60 feet it was able to do in 2 minutes and 21 seconds, which is a pretty fast line speed. Now, speaking of line speed, this APEX winch has a line speed of like 31 feet per minute with no weight on it at all. And that's, you know, a lot of people kind of get caught up on winch line speed. In my opinion, the line speed isn't a huge deal, because how often are we actually using our winch? We're not competing with it. We don't need to winch really, really fast. So, I mean, it is nice to have a fast line speed, but it's not the end of the world. Good thing is that the APEX is pretty dang fast. There's a few things I do want to show you guys that I did not talk about yesterday. Clearly, we did not install this. I talked about, you know, why it might be nice. You know, you can disconnect your power going to the winch. That way you don't have to worry about power always being on. But personally, when I think of a winch, I think of it's, you know, not only a recovery item, but it also can be a safety item. If I need to hop out and winch somebody really quick, whether they're on the side of a cliff, they're about to slide down the mountain, the last thing I want to have to worry about is to remember to open my hood and turn this switch on. I'd rather hop out, hook up my winch, and get them to safety as soon as possible. So it's kind of up to you if you want to use a battery, you know, the little winch power disconnect or not. I chose not to, but this thing also does have kind of an array of positives to it too. We don't have to worry about if we get in a wreck, you know, our wire getting chafed and possibly catching on fire. We don't have to worry about this drawing any power from the battery if we're sitting for a long time. So there's, you know, I'll leave that up to you guys. I'm not going to run it though. Now, there was also 2 of these chafing guards included in the APEX winch box. I don't know how I didn't talk about them, but these things are actually pretty cool. And I'm glad they included 2, because not only can we throw in the LJ, I can throw one over in the JK. This is a pretty neat item, and you can buy these separately. But what this does is, you know, when you're winching, sometimes whether you're in the woods or the rocks, your winch line is going to rub up against something. Whether it's a rock that's in the way, you know, it's kind of like, you know, hanging out towards where you're winching, or a tree that maybe you can't winch to, but you need to go around to get to a bigger tree. When your synthetic line rubs up against that, it can possibly chafe or kind of disintegrate the line, and then boom, it breaks. So what this does is you just wrap it right along your winch line, and this is gonna stay right there and protect your winch line. So it's pretty cool that they offer that. And that's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, is how this winch comes with so many things that most winch kits do not come with out of the box. You know, not only do we get the chafing guards, our little battery disconnect, we also get the very oversized winch hook, which actually tucks up really nice. I am a pretty big fan of that. Our relocation kit, the extra ground wires, and plenty of extra, you know, mounting and hardware accessories. So far, the winch has definitely impressed me. I don't want this to be a comparison video. I was out here a few minutes ago and I was thinking, like, man, we should do some like times against the Warns. We should like see which one can pull the most. But I don't think this video should be about that. I want this video to mostly be just a kind of a review of the Badlands APEX, because a lot of you guys, I've been getting a lot of Facebook messages asking about this winch, you know, for the past few months. Looks like a really good winch. Is it a good winch? I can't tell you that in one single video. We're gonna have to do a second review later on to kind of see how this thing holds up, get some real trail time behind it. But so far, not only looking at the specs, but also using it just in the driveway, it definitely seems like it's a very good, you know, it's a great built winch with some very, very impressive specifications. So next thing I kind of want to talk about is warranty. The warranty on the APEX, it kind of sucks. So the manufacturer's warranty, you get 90 days and that's it. That kind of sucks. Most, you know, Smittybilts, Warns, Mile Marker, any of those other ones, you're gonna get at least a couple years. Now, the good thing about Harbor Freight is that you can purchase the extra protection program, but that is gonna add on to the cost. But then you almost have to think about, well, replacements. If I'm out wheeling in Tennessee, if I had a Smittybilt or Warn and I bought it out of 4 Wheel Parts, sure, you can go in and do an exchange there, or you can wait for them to ship it to you. There's not 4 Wheel Parts everywhere. There's only a handful of locations. Harbor Freights, they are everywhere. So if I'm out wheeling, this thing breaks, I can take it into the local Harbor Freight and have a new winch within the same day. So there's, you know, pros and cons to both. Harbor Freight does have replacements parts for these, you know, in the back of the catalog. Not catalog, in the back of the owner's manual for this winch, there was all of the parts with part numbers, and they said you can call them, they do have them in stock. So that's definitely pretty good. But let's talk about winches. What size do you need? A 12,000 pound winch on this little LJ might seem a little bit excessive, but in reality it's not. My recommendation is to get the biggest winch that you can afford. If you can only afford a 9,000 pound winch, that's okay. Pair it with a snatch block that's effectively going to kind of double your winch pulling power. But when you're looking at winches, you know, we're running a 10,000 pound on the JK, 12,000 pound on the Gladiator, and now 12,000 pounds on this. You might say, man, none of those Jeeps weigh more than 7,000 pounds. Why are you putting 12,000 pounds on there? And it kind of goes into what kind of wheeling you're going to be doing. If you're a big rock crawler, there's going to be times when you're going to be stuck in between a rock, whether, you know, you're sitting on your axle or you're turtled up and you have a big rock on your belly. You're going to have to drag your Jeep over that. Your Jeep's 6,000 pounds plus the added resistance of whatever you're trying to get over. So not only do you need a winch that can pull your Jeep, you need a winch that can overcome whatever you're trying to pull it through. A 6,000 pound Jeep that's really stuck can easily take 10 or 11,000 pounds of pressure to really pull it off. So my recommendation is get a big winch. It's going to save you in the long run. Plus, there's also grade. You know, depending on how steep of a hill you're trying to climb, that can add 30, 40, or even 50% of the weight of your Jeep to the pulling power. Now pair that with mud and rocks, you can easily exceed 12,000 pounds. So definitely try to get a big winch, and if you can't, get a snatch block. It's going to help you out. So we are going to do more testing on this once the trails and all the parks open up, but so far I can tell you that this is a pretty impressive winch, and I think it's going to work. You know, I'm not going to say, hey, you definitely need to go buy this, but if you're looking for a winch that's a little cheaper than some of the other ones, something that actually has really good looks to it, and something that it does come with a lot of accessories, I think this winch might fit your budget and your needs. I have seen this winch on sale for around 500 bucks, and at that price point, this thing is a complete steal. So we'll follow up with some more videos, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like always, please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions about this winch or winches in general, let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'll see you guys later.